allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There we go, okay. Okay, welcome to the zoning board meeting, the June 23rd, 2015 zoning board. We have two zoning appeals, so we'll get on with this. First, we're going to look for the additions and deletions to the agenda as presented. Does anybody have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, agenda is as printed. So we have the minutes of the regular meeting minutes of May 26, 2015. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the minutes are approved. Our first appeal today is this is appeal for 29875 East River Road. It's a request to have a hearing, and what we're going to do is have Brian come up and give us a overview of the appeal to give us an idea of what we're talking about. And then after we have the overview, then we'll have the person who is petitioning for the appeal to come up and give us their insight into why they want the appeal approved. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully I won't mess up Ted's wonderful new technology here. Do my very best. Okay, first case this evening, 29875 East River Road. Subject site is this guy right here. It's on the waterfront side of East River. This is down on Hickory Island towards the southern part. Subject site and surrounding properties are all zoned R1F, which is the single-family district for the Hickory Island Association. We're dealing with a few different items tonight. This is a proposal for construction of a new residence. They are seeking 4 variances in particular. They are related to sections 3.4 and 3.5 of the zoning ordinance, and 23.5 provides us with our standards upon which you are to make your decision if you see fit this evening. 2 quick points just in relation to existing conditions here. The existing property is non-conforming due to a slightly deficient lot width. When I get to the site plan slide, you'll see there's a little bit of a bend in the property here, and where the proposed residence is being built, it does widen from street to water, but at the front of the proposed residence, which is where we measure lot width, it's approximately 36 feet wide. This is a 40-foot lot width district. Additionally, existing residence is also non-conforming, although that is proposed to be demolished as part of this request. So that doesn't play a big role, but I do have a couple of points I want to touch on when I come back to that. So here's a look at our site plan. As I mentioned earlier, so this is the street front up at the upper left portion, and you can see as it goes back, it does widen out towards the water. Here's the sort of the bend or the kink in the side lot lines that I referenced. You can see there's this little angle, starts here, then heads back towards the water. The red outline is the proposed residence, and the blue outline, which is pretty faint on this, I apologize, the blue outline is the existing residence. So you can see what they're doing is they're expanding, as proposed, would be more structure towards the street front with a little bit less towards the waterfront. And I can come back to the site plan at any point if we want. So here's really what we're looking at tonight. So the first variance is one of those that's a little difficult, does not apply well to the R1F district. And this may be something I'll talk to Planning Commission about, maybe looking to tweak in the future. But we do have, under our residential design standards, we have a maximum ratio of garage door width to overall residential front width. It's really intended for a more conventional residence on a wider lot, something that's internal, like an internal lot or a much bigger lot. And the max is 50%. The idea being we don't want roadways and street fronts to be dominated by the presence of garage doors. While when we attach a garage on Hickory Island, obviously to get any type of a garage here, in this case, it's a two-car garage. Obviously, the narrowness of the lot puts us in a position where that ratio becomes very difficult to achieve. And it does not apply to the detached garages. So while most of Hickory, in this area in particular, does have detached garages, that's why, in essence, those are allowed that way, because this is only applicable to an attached garage. So it's a little bit of an unusual situation, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that, because this doesn't come up very often at ZBA. So points 2 and 3 then are tied, actually 2, 3, and 4 variances are tied to section 3.5, which are conventional dimensional standards, this, the area and bulk regs for R1F. And the first two, or the next two, are tied to the spacing between residences. When we build new in the R1F district, we have a requirement to be provide 12-foot spacing between the new residence and existing residence to either side. As this residence is proposed, that standard is not met on either of the sides. The one side is approximately 7-foot spacing. The other side is approximately 8.6-foot spacing. The 2 points I want to bring up on that one I started to allude to on the opening slide, and that is these are actually, I believe the one is equivalent to, if not a little bit of an improvement from existing condition. Again, can't put a lot of weight in that because existing structure is coming down, but much of what's being proposed dimensionally, and you can see here, if you look at the blue, so the spacing to the sort of the east or the north, spacing is actually being improved with the proposed residence, while some of it is actually it's a little bit decreased to the south or the west, but it is an improvement to the east side. And then the last one is tied to the waterfront setback. This is another item that's a little bit unique to the R1F district, and I don't believe has come in front of ZBA previously. And that is we basically have two ways to calculate the shoreline setback in the R1F district. The first is an average shoreline setback line, which is the conventional way that we calculate shoreline setback throughout the island. R1F has an additional stipulation, however, and it's the more restrictive of either the average shoreline setback, and I'm just kind of showing you to basically see. I think you've all been down there. You've seen this aerial before. The homes really are pretty much built in a line. They may not be spot on to the inch, but there is a very predominant average shoreline setback that runs in here, including our existing subject site as well as the two adjacent properties. But the issue in this case is it's the more restrictive of the average shoreline setback, or a line that is measured 215 feet from the street front lot line and parallel back. So what's happening in this particular instance is, at least in my opinion, with this sort of bend in the lot, this doesn't account for all of it, but it certainly does not help the matter. So we've got a line 215 feet parallel to the street front lot line within which we can build to the shoreline side. And it's very faint. You can probably see it better on your plans, but you can see it here. I'm trying to highlight it. This is actually that 215-foot line right here. So what's happening is the restriction of the regulation in this instance would actually force a new home to be pushed quite a bit up, in this case about 16, 17 feet from the existing house, which does sit pretty much in line with those two adjacent homes. So that is the fourth variance that we're dealing with here this evening. I can come back to these. Bottom of the slide, these are just the 14 conditions and standards that you all need to take into consideration if you make a decision tonight. And then just real quick,
Brian,
yes, sir.
just a question.
Absolutely.
That kind of flies in the face of a clear vision triangle, where if we were to adhere to that 215-foot figure, then the clear vision triangles would come into compact.
Well, in this case, you can see where it is relatively restrictive upon the owner to build a new residence here, to the tune of, again, if you want to apply your ordinance language and the standards you're applying of practical difficulty, unnecessary burden, those types of things. I think you can see in this instance, at least in my opinion, I don't want to put words in your mouths, but I think those are phrases that fit this scenario. Interestingly enough, and I won't go too far into the history, but that 215-foot line actually came from the representatives that we worked with from Hickory Island Association when the ordinance was tweaked. So when the R1F district was created, we actually had a subcommittee of planning commissioners, and we invited some residents of Hickory Island and some members of their association to come and sit with us so that we could really walk through and try to come up with some regulations that fit their needs and really the needs of their owners in that particular sub down there. So that's where that one came from. I think this is just one of those instances where it becomes, again, my opinion, it becomes overly restrictive given the existing conditions we have. And you can see here, again, I'll go back to the sort of established condition of this area. There really is a pretty consistent line, and if all of a sudden we're to start to force new homes to be pushed farther away, you can kind of see what would start to happen with that. We would definitely lose this established line.
Yeah, there are two new homes being built on East River there. Are they adhering to that? Do you know?
They did not come before you, I don't believe, did they? So I believe they do.
Brian, isn't this lot probably one of the longest lots, and thus the 215 would be moved back versus once you make that bend?
Correct.
They are shorter in that 215.
Yeah, and again,
lines up.
That sort of kink actually cuts that 215 even shorter because it is the way it's written. It is parallel to that street front. So in essence, if the lot were perfectly straight. Right. Again, I'm not sure it makes up for the entire 15, 16
I don't
foot,
think it does.
but
it'd do something.
It absolutely would.
Brian, I also on the side setbacks.
Yes.
Is the 7 and 8 feet because the adjacent homes are right on the lot line?
That is correct. Yeah, that's a spacing.
So the 12 foot is impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it's put all on this one.
That's correct.
Homeowner.
It is. Again, this is great because you guys are pretty much wrapping up my presentation for me. I like it when
we're
that
trying
happens.
to speed you up a little.
I know. I need that. I'm sorry. I got that on the golf course today too. Hurry up.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah, but to that point, so they do comply with the side yard setbacks. The issue is with the spacing between residences, and as you can see here, so at this corner, house to the east, it sits at a 0 lot line setback, and at this corner, house to the west or the south also sits at a 0 lot line setback. So in essence, yes, a new residence on this site to fully comply would have to have both 12-foot spacings entirely on
their
its
lot.
property.
Yep.
And as I mentioned, up in this area here, and I tried to, I didn't express it probably as clearly as I could have in the written word, but it's about 36 feet here. So really what that leaves us with is a buildable width of about 12 feet. That's, again, I'm gonna fall back to my terms: practical difficulty, unnecessarily burdensome. 12 foot in width. I don't really think that's the kind of house we're looking for. Quite frankly, I don't think you're looking for that anywhere. So let me go ahead and wrap up. We hit most of this. So existing property is non-conforming in terms of lot width. Existing residence is also non-conforming for a handful of items. That's to be demolished. We're looking at 4 variances: garage to residence width ratio, both side spacings, east and west or north and south, however you want to look at it. And then an increase in the shoreline setback from the street front lot line. We just talked about this one. So the 2 adjacent residences basically sit at 0 lot lines, or at least the near corners do. At its narrowest point, lot is 12 foot in width. For the most part, the proposed residence does match or improve upon existing dimensional conditions, setbacks, spacing, shoreline setback. Again, the one challenge would be sort of to that south or west. We are slightly reducing that existing spacing between residences, but again, setback is actually the same or improved. We are dealing with a somewhat unique shape of lot. I think that bend in it, although there are a few others adjacent, I think probably both properties to each side of them share that condition, but you can see sort of the what that shape does to your building envelope, and it does have an impact on their ability to build new. Zero lot line setbacks also adds to the difficulty of doing that, and generally speaking, I mean, we're looking at a new home in a completely residential setting. I don't really see any other issues in terms of public safety, transportation, neighborhood character, all the other items, all of our other remaining 14 standards
Our air is okay, and
we have to deal with. So I don't see too many concerns as it relates to any of the other standards either.
Brian, I got one other question for you. Currently, if I looked at the right property, the garage is sitting at East River.
That's correct.
And how far back now, since that, I'm assuming that's going to be taken down?
That's my understanding.
And it'll now be attached to the house.
Correct.
Back here. How far back is the garage off of East River?
I did not
No.
make that measurement. We can probably figure that out for you.
But,
maybe I'll let the applicant.
Yeah.
I mean, seconds figure that out.
not only dealing that night, and the question has to do with that 50%. I mean, the fact that it's not that 50. That was along the road. This is now going to be set.
Correct.
Back.
This is well behind
Yeah.
the established detached front. So I think, the intent, as I alluded to earlier, the intent of that garage ratio was so we didn't have street fronts and people driving our residential neighborhoods, and all their views and sightlines are just garage door, garage door, garage door. So I think actually pulling this one back does help to mitigate the view and the sight lines along the roadway. Quite frankly, given the bend in the lot, the curve in the road, some of the landscaping up there, the fact that it's set back quite a ways, I won't say that you won't see it.
You won't see it all.
If you're driving and you're
Yeah.
looking at the road like you should be, you won't see it.
Yeah.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian, just curious, on the side yard setback, with some of these houses being built on the property line, what are we concerned about? Safety, access, medical access to the other vehicles being able to get through? Is there a concern? I mean,
Well, it's a combination of things. It's that, and it's preserving some open spaces in between residences. That's why we have setbacks. That's why we have spacing requirements. Is when you have a larger lot, our conventional spacing is 18 feet, and the idea is to sort of keep some of those open yards and open spaces so that our neighborhoods don't feel too built up. If we allowed everybody to build to the minimum 6-foot side yards in a conventional district, and we had homes that were only 12 feet apart, we start to lose a little bit of that character, I think.
yeah. Plus, there are vehicles that want to get to the other side. I mean, fire equipment, whatever. There's no way to get through there, right? If it's too narrow.
If it's too narrow, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So where is the minimum? Where do we? What's the minimum that we really can tolerate?
Well, the ordinance minimum is 12 feet.
12 feet. So.
They're deficient on both.
And they were deficient. The home that sits there right now is deficient.
Yes.
And again, because of the adjacent.
I'm sure the fire department and the police department has looked at that and said that they can service.
This item in particular, they have not. We did not send this to public safety.
I think as I was listening to John,
Yeah.
that was one of his points is can they service that area?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Even that's a big worry. But then you got construction vehicles that want to get through to build something out that way. They got to go over someone else's property.
Well, hopefully they won't have to do that. That they shouldn't be doing that. That will be a neighbor-to-neighbor
I can tell you
situation.
they do. I've seen them.
I can imagine. They shouldn't. theoretically be doing that, but
Yeah.
hopefully they'll work something out with their neighbors if this were to get approved. I would, if the board's so inclined, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time here, and the applicant may still wish to speak, is certainly if you're comfortable moving this forward this evening, I would have no issue submitting this to fire and police for any concern. So if you wanted to incorporate a condition essentially of police and fire sign off on it or approval, you could certainly do so if that is a concern. If it's a more grave concern of yours and you feel like that makes or breaks the entire case, you could certainly you could table this to the next meeting, at which time we could come back to you with whatever.
Yeah, I don't think
of the public safety would be.
Right. I don't think we want to table it. I think the issue was serviceability by the people.
Yep. And I'm going to defer a little bit because part of the presenting team for the applicant is actually a member of your fire department, so he may have. And I don't want him to speak to it from a review standpoint, but he could at least speak to it from a common sense standpoint. And at some point, quite honestly, and again, I'm not a fireman, I'm not nearly that brave, so at some point, they're not going to bring a fire truck all the way back to the rear of this building to fight a fire anyway. That's just not going to happen. So
yeah, no, the only thing I think we're talking about is getting to the waterfront. Because you wouldn't want to get a truck back to the waterfront, but you got to get equipment back.
Right.
Somebody might be drowning or whatever. So that's basically where we are. From my perspective, I don't think we want to table it. We want to go ahead with it. And if you want to we can make an issue, in the motion. I think just say to look at it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Now we have Kim and Rick Pagowski. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Can you come up here to the podium and give us the reasons why we should accept the variances? And please give us your name and address.
My name is Kimberly Pagowski, Pegouske. My address now is 28330 Brandis Road, but we own this property in Flat Rock, Michigan. And this is my husband, Rick. You have to give your name.
Okay, you want to give your name?
Yeah, my name is Rick.
Hey, Rick. Same last name?
Yes.
Okay. And who's the other gentleman here?
This is Charlie Lawler. He's our builder.
Okay.
For starters, somebody had a question.
Charlie, you're going to have to speak at the mic.
I'm sorry. Somebody had a question on the length.
Yes.
To
From
the garage.
From the road to the garage.
She has a site plan here if you want to see it. This is 100 feet from here to here, and there's probably another 20 feet to the garage. So it's approximately 120 feet back off the road.
Thank you.
To speak to Mr. Carnego, we just finished one down the street, and building in that area is tough. It's really hard. We had to go in, we had to put a new sewer in. We tore a house down just like this was going to be. The sewer is actually on the riverside. So we had to go in, dig the sewer first, run the sewer into our footings, and then we had to dig our way out because there's no way to get back in once you start. So there's a lot of wheelbarrow, there's a lot of work to do anything in the backyard, so you got to think a little bit ahead. To the fire department, there's no issue with having it stipulated that we go to the fire marshal and the police department to move forward with this project. A fire truck would never leave the driveway or the road. We'd sink into the abyss instantly.
So what are you saying? Are you saying you went to the fire department?
No. But there's no, like Brian mentioned, to put it in there that it's subject to get reviewed at the fire station. There's no issue. There's no problem with doing that.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you.
We did multiple options to start with and tried to come up with the best fit to the site. So we reduced the actual width on part of it. When you're working with zero lot line on both sides, it makes it a real hardship for the customer. So I think Garnet Cousins, he's a Lawrence Tech architect and a professor there. He did a lot of calculations and spent a lot of time working this out as the best pieces to fit that lot to help the whole neighborhood. We also went as far as to go to the Hickory Island Association to make sure that they would be on board with the thing. And I don't know if you have the letter or not, but the Hickory Island Association has signed off and is in favor of moving forward with the construction of this.
You have that? Do we have that? Okay. Can we see it?
Because they have a lot of opinions, and we would love to help with their opinions in any way.
And they just recently started a construction committee on the island. There's 3 members for the Hickory Island Construction or Company, and they each went out and walked the property, actually physically saw the property, and I also gave them the plans and the blueprints that we have here, the temporary site plans, and they agreed.
Lori, is your sign? We have one signed by Ralph Thayer, the president. Okay.
So you put together, what was it, 5 options? How many were there?
Yeah, the 5th one was the one.
And then the one you picked was which one did you pick?
Very last one.
I figured that you had, and that happened to be the one that you had the most area, most usable, livable area, right? That last one was.
Correct.
And that conforms the best that we could. We started out with going just the letter of the law with everything that the township wants, and we presented it on the site plan, and it shows the variances and how it would look and how a house would look if we stuck to the letter of the law of the township variances. And then we ended up with what we thought was nice for the neighbors, nice for us.
Okay, Mr. Lawler, keep going. I mean, you got to tell us why we should approve it.
Well, if everybody's visited the site, there's a less than quality garage starting at the front of the site. So if we take that structure down, it's going to help everybody on Hickory Island and when you go down there. They would really love to have the attached garage instead of rebuilding one up at the front. So that's why we moved the garage to the back. We worked with all the setbacks to make sure that the north side, east side is our gentleman sitting behind us, and we want to keep him egress to his backyard so he can still cut the grass and work, because his only egress to his backyard is through their property. So we
through that property, your property.
There's a fence on the other side. He can't get in unless we work through that issue. So I think that addressed his issue with getting still able to cut his grass without a helicopter.
Well, that's working with the neighbor. That's good.
And the neighbor on the other side is in favor of the construction process too. So I think we've kind of met Hickory Islands Association, we've met the 2 neighbors' concerns, and I think Garnet did a great job making all that into a great looking house.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, as long as I've been here, I've never seen a document coming with 5 different options. I mean, that was
Garnet's right on it.
that was above and beyond, actually, as far as I was concerned.
Does a great job.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we know that the ordinances are really burdensome, especially on Hickory Island. They really make for almost an unbuildability factor. So we know we have to give some here, and that's what we want to do. We want to figure out what we can give and what we can't.
Thank you.
Okay. So are there any other comments from
I don't know if
Well, they'll ask for.
from the audience? Okay, from the audience. Okay, name and address.
Hi, everybody. My name's Tony Carmen. I live at 29869 East River, and I am to the north/east. The lucky neighbor to have such a short space in between the 2 properties. To me, it seems like a really reasonable proposal. I mean, it's been well thought out. It's dimensions that I never would have thought of, but I would definitely agree with getting rid of the old garage out by the streaks. It looks like it's going to fall down any second now. So,
but it's charming.
Yeah, that garage was built how long ago? In the
1917?
had it been like
1917. Yeah, I know it's quite old. Yeah, and I think it was a border. They had a border up, when they had the military, and I think they, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But as Mr. Lawler said, I just wanted to show up today and just kind of place my only concerns that would be, as he said, my only ways of ingress and egress from my sidewalk out to the waterfront is between our two houses. And it's pretty narrow between there as it is already. Obviously, when this is all said and done, it'll be wider, so it'll help. Just my only concern is when the construction, is ongoing, and especially the demolition, just that I have enough room to be able to, get between the houses. And I actually have a lawn service that does my yard, and Kim and Rick are nice enough to let them go around the south/west side of their house. So that's usually not a problem there, but just to have enough space in between where I can do that and go back and forth. That's really only my only concern. And I guess it's kind of I didn't know what the exact plans were because I hadn't seen them until tonight. But my only other trepidation was that the way our driveways are situated, the way the existing garage is now, their driveway is directly behind it. And then there's a really small sidewalk in between my driveway and the existing garage. So my concern there was that, construction or the contractor's vehicles could potentially accidentally park in my driveway and block my ability to get in and out of my garage. But I guess I'm assuming if the garage is going down first, then that will be, that'll be a moot point. And so they'll go from where their garage was just straight back instead of having to, park on my driveway. And if they ever need to park on my driveway temporarily, that's fine. I just, in the morning, got to get to work and all that stuff. So
Right. Okay, well, is that it?
that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other question I had, so the Hickory Island, the association had no problem with the setback going with 250, what was it, 215?
No. Oh, the 215 from here to here?
Yeah. They had no problem with that.
No, they had no problem with that. In fact, it was mentioned. They measured it. And in fact, they even walked it. They measured it, and they had called me one day to come out and walk with them. And then they called me back and said, no, we figured it out, and everyone's on the same line, and we're good with it. Okay. They agreed that if we had to stay with the letter, that we would have to go back like 16 feet, and we would lose our view also. But they were good with it going, everyone's on the same line.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. With that, do we have...
I just have a question. The only reason they're here is because it's a new structure. Is that correct? I mean, we've given Hickory Island Association some leeway in doing things, but it's because they're tearing it down and they're rebuilding, correct?
The variances are tied to the new build.
Yeah.
The existing residence is non-conforming. If they wanted to try to expand or modernize the existing residence, in all honesty, unless they did everything internal, they would have been in front of you anyway.
Okay.
The expansion of that non-conforming residence would have triggered the need for ZBA review also.
Okay.
We were actually going to cut this chunk of the house off and remodel the house, and it was still non-conforming where the zero lot lines are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and in a lot of ways, with the new structure, it's going to give a wider side setback.
Okay, the board have any other questions, any comments? My comment basically is Hickory Island is so unique that we have to give. There's a lot of give, and that's what we're.
The wheelbarrow too to get the stuff in the backyard.
I mean,
it
not monetarily.
seems like you've been given a lot lately.
Either that or build a doghouse in the front and the rest of the house behind it.
Yeah, a 12-foot wide house doesn't cut it, right? Right.
It's hurting us for 22.
Right. Okay. Okay. With that, I think can we get a motion for this appeal?
I would like to make a motion that, hang on here, appeal number 15-003 be approved.
Support.
I would also add that I don't think we need to go to the fire or police, but I have no problem if you want to add that. I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I thought what Charlie said, it was going to go there anyway.
No, Charlie said
Well, it won't go there, but-
he wouldn't be against it, but
Yeah, no, I don't think it needs to go there.
so
So we agree that just leave it out of the motion?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion.
Or
Do we have support?
yep.
We have support?
Yeah,
Oh,
John.
okay.
Yep.
Support. Okay, any comments? Seeing no comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the variance is approved.
Thank you.
Go forth and build.
Good luck with your house.
Thank you. And thank you, Tony.
Okay, now we can move on to the next appeal. The next appeal is 15-004. It is filed by a Mr. Fred Labadie of 25224 Dallas. And we'll get Brian up here to discuss exactly what the applicant wants and what it's all about.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Let me try to bring this back. Everybody good? Okay, second case this evening, 25224 Dallas Drive. It is this residence sits kind of, I'm not sure if this is actually the name of the road or if this was just the Google Maps giving me Dallas Drive, Dallas Court. Anyway, it's sort of this northwest quadrant or of almost of this little circle here, Dallas Drive, shown as Dallas Drive, Dallas Court on the aerial photo. So it's this guy right here. Petitioner is seeking to expand the existing residence. They're looking to expand to the west, off of the west side of the building. There'd be a remodel, removal of the existing garage, remodel of additional living space to attach to a new garage that would be further west on the property. So the site and this entire neighborhood are zoned R1B. We've got nothing but single-family residences surrounding the property. And we're only dealing with both of our variances are tied to Section 3.5 Schedule of Regulations for the R1B district. A couple of points of background. I have a typo. Sorry about that. Jeez. The property is non-conforming. It is actually deficient in lot area. It's deficient by quite a bit. This is just over an 11,000 square foot lot. This is a 16,000 square foot district. So when we're already talking 16,000 square foot lots, shave off almost 5,000 square feet, we've got a pretty limited area to work with. Ironically, it does meet the width. It is actually an 80-foot wide lot. When measured on, essentially if you measure the narrow north to south line, it is an 80-foot wide lot. But that, again, that is still creates a bit of difficulty. And then the other point is the existing residence does encroach into the front yard setback by just over 2 feet. And this is one of those interesting situations where immediately when Lori and I saw that and met with the property owner to talk about this, automatically we assume that it's non-conforming. And so we start applying the non-conforming expansion provisions, dug a little bit deeper, and actually thankfully we had the institutional knowledge of the owner with us, actually obtained a variance almost 30 years ago, 1987. Got a variance from ZBA to construct, I can't remember if it was an addition or if this was the new house at the time. I'll let the petitioner respond to that if anybody's curious, but essentially granted them a 2+ foot front yard setback such that the house sits where it does today. So this is a look at our site plan. So again, that 37-foot 8-inch mark, that's the 2-foot 4-inch variance that was granted. So again, here's sort of the curvilinear frontage wrapping around, existing residence here, I mentioned this blue is the existing. This is to be demolished, so this is a much smaller garage space or almost storage space and a connector. And as proposed, we're demoing that. We're expanding the connector, and then we're building a much larger garage off of the west side. You can see here all outlined in red. So the two issues we're dealing with are, one, petitioner wants to match that existing front yard setback. So basically wants the garage front to match the residence front. So that's where the 37-foot 8-inch setback, again 2-foot 4-inch variance is being sought right there. Additionally, because of the extent of how the addition is pushing to the west, it actually also encroaches into the rear yard by just over a foot. So this is a 1-foot 1-inch variance that is sought from the west lot line, which in this case has been determined to be the rear lot line, to the proposed structure. So very close on both accounts, quite frankly. It's not often we see 1-foot and 2-foot variances before this board, which is one of those things which is, if you read through my letter, and I'm going to get to my closing slide in a minute here, you see, is one of those things that I'm kind of torn, because typically I would stand before you and I would present to you that we want to minimize and reduce the extent of variances, and we're talking about 1 foot and 2 foot. That's about as small a variance as you could ever get. But then my brain starts working to the point that, and I'll let Mr. Labadie come up and speak when I'm done as well, I start wondering if we really need a 1 foot and a 2 foot variance. This is, given the size of this addition, if the 22-foot wide garage is not overly wide by any stretch, but if we shaved a foot off of the connector between the residence and the garage, we can meet that rear yard setback, and additionally, a 30-foot deep garage is quite deep. So again, I understand the look and the symmetry Mr. Labadie is going for to match the existing residence, but again, if we shave 2 foot 4 inches and this was still a 27-foot deep garage, it would certainly still function very well as a garage. So this is one of those real tricky ones where, again, a very small lot, confined spaces, existing residents, trying to match the character of that. I see all of those as essentially as pros. The extent of the two variances sought, 1 foot 1 inch and 2 foot 4 inches, very minimal. But again, that just makes me question whether or not this could be done without any variances. And that's sort of where I'm torn personally on this one as far as offering you my opinion, and I'm glad I'm not in your seats to deal with this. So I pretty much have covered all of this. So we're dealing with 40-foot minimums on the front and the rear. We've already talked about the two variances needed. You know what your standards are. I've already referenced the non-conforming lots. Existing variance going back to 1987. Intent to match the front yard setback. Again, very limited variances being sought, which is a positive. Question as to whether we could do it without any variances, where I guess is kind of my tipping point on this one. A couple other things I wanted to hit at. The other point I did not get across yet was the existing residence is non-conforming for one we don't see very often, and it is slightly smaller than your minimum usable floor area for a dwelling. So in each zoning district, we have a minimum square footage such that we don't end up with 300 square foot homes, which isn't going to happen anyway. But in R1B, we have a 1,200 square foot minimum house size, and the existing residence is actually just under 1,000. So another, if you want me to kind of tip back to the pro and con side, another item on the pro side is that we're actually, I wasn't able to run the numbers as precisely as I would have liked, but I do believe that with this little bit of demo in this new build, I believe the net increase will bring this pretty darn close to a conforming residence. So again, you want to talk about improvements. Well, we're making improvements that I think are justified on the one hand, and again, it's just that one silly question of mine as to whether we could do this without any variances. Don't really see any other issues in terms of neighborhood character, in terms of public safety, intent of ordinance, all those other items that come into play. I did ask, just because and this is not a knock on the petitioner, the quality of the drawing is a little lacking. He did the best he could with what he had to work with. So I did raise a couple of questions at least for your and his consideration. And the first one was that I'm trying to figure out if the driveway is actually going to be proposed to just have this angle kind of cut off here, because as you can see right now, that he will have to expand the driveway. It just seemed like this may need to be widened out a little bit more. That's not a huge issue for the board to deal with, but it is a bit of an odd turn. And it's one of those things where we do have a traffic flow standards not impacting or impeding traffic on the public streets. I don't think that this setback and the amount of driveway space that is there, I don't think we would ever run into that situation, but I guess I would just hope for maybe a little more clarification on that. And then the other one was in our elevation drawings, which I did not get in the presentation. We only got the front view. So you got the front view in your package that shows the garage door side, and actually I believe they're split double doors, which is actually a really nice look and helps to break up that dominance of garage door that we just talked about. But we did not get rear or side elevation views of that structure. That's something that we would typically get. I think you can look at the drawing and get the gist of what is proposed to be constructed. But again, I wanted to put that forth. That's in my letter, and I wanted to make sure that I brought that up tonight as well, in case the board had any concerns about those items. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Brian, considering the lot area is 11,000 square feet, now with the addition, how many square feet of usable, how many square feet does the structure take up?
Existing or as proposed?
Proposed.
Proposed is including the garage, proposed is a 945 square foot addition, 660 of which is the garage. So we're adding 285, which again, some of that is going to be lost because of the existing that's already there. But again, pretty darn close to bringing us up to that 1,200 minimum square footage for this district.
Yeah, but the lot area, the percent that they're allowed to cover.
Coverage is not an issue.
There's not an issue.
Lot coverage and floor area are of no consequence
no problem.
on this
Okay.
property. Nope, we're in good shape there.
Okay. Any other questions for Brian? Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Applicant, Mr. Fred Labadie. You come up, present your name, give your name and address.
Fred Labadie, 25224 Dallas Drive, Grozio.
Okay, tell us why we should consider this.
Just wanting to get a larger garage and a dining room. The dining room originally is a converted breezeway, so it's actually very small, and it's difficult to use when you have a larger number of people at the house. And the garage is very small. I think in the 42 years I've been there, I've had a car in the garage maybe a half a dozen times. It's just not enough storage spaces. I've always got other items in the garage for storage. And that's really what my biggest thing is wanting to obtain more storage room. I have a shed thing off the back that I can keep my lawnmower and stuff in, but I would like to take and get everything under one roof. And I have a gambrel roof design, and I would like to have like a pull-down staircase so maybe I can use some storage up above, and it just would be just a much easier thing to deal with.
Mr. Labadie?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Labadie, Brian alluded to the variances we're looking for are very small. Why not just cut off those, the 2 feet and the 1 foot and comply?
Well, actually, and I mentioned to Lori, it was pointed out to me over the weekend, something I hadn't considered with this drawing here is the steps from the dining room into the garage take up about 2 feet of floor space. So I need on that side 4 feet just to be able to use it. So what I've come up with since then would be to take in, if I could make the dining room smaller to pick up the 2 feet, and I would like to have a garage, same gambrel roof design, with a 16-foot single door with 4 feet on either side to balance it out with the peak of the gambrel roof, because if I was just to put the 4 feet on the one side, it's kind of killywampus looking. But the 30-foot depth it would not obstruct anyone's view in any way. Actually, right now, I have decorative fencing back there, and there's arborvitaes that are 20 feet tall that have been back there, and it's just looking into the neighbor's backyard, and there's absolutely no view that would be taken away from anybody.
So are you saying that you can mitigate one of those variances?
No, it would actually, I would like to take instead of the garage being 22 feet and the dining room being 15, I'd like the garage to be 24 so I can have a 16-foot door and then 4 and 4 and just make the dining room a couple 2 feet shorter, or maybe even a little less if I had to. Right now it's 11'6", and what is now the length is 11'6" would become the width of 11'6". So it would be a little better than what we have now, but I'd still like to, if we could get just, if we're building one, I'd like to, see if we can just get a little bit more room out of it for entertaining and such, and have a larger table in there.
I struggle with what Brian said, is that we're dealing with such small variances. Why are we here for that? I mean, why can't you meet the ordinance?
I really want the garage to match the existing front of the house, just to balance it out, and then the dining room would be set back a little bit as it is now.
So the balance is predominant for you. It's either,
I think
it's either the
aesthetically,
balance or nothing.
Well, I just feel aesthetically it would be much more appealing with the house.
Jim, when I looked at the property with all the arborvitae back there, it's not in anybody's way as far as the 1 foot or 2 foot variance, and you only want to build this once. If you want a little bit larger dining room, I think we ought to consider doing all the variances that he's asking for, because it's not impacting anybody.
No, it's not.
Yeah, this is one of those 6 of 1. You got the theoretical that you certainly could meet, but the practicality of it, that 1 and 2 feet the other way. That and I agree with Bob. You only want to do this once, and the impact isn't there on anybody.
None whatsoever.
The whole impact will be a plus to the property owner.
You've been
no
here,
negative to the
Jackie.
Well, I agree with Bob, and I think that, and the applicant. I think that aesthetically, it's going to be a much better finish than what there is there now.
Oh yeah.
And I also like the idea of bringing the residents back into a more a state of more conformity for size. So I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, and a 30-foot deep garage would not be any problem with anybody in any way. I've talked to the neighbors around there, and it would give me storage at the front or the back end of the garage to put all the snow blowers and lawnmowers and things that I have back there. I have no room in this little house, but I love it. It's a great neighborhood. It had all the things that I liked when I moved in there it still exist, and I will be there for a very long time to come, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Seeing there's no audience, nobody in the audience, so do we have any comments from the board? Any further comments from the board? Hearing none, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Bob.
I'll make a motion to approve appeal number 15-002. No, that was approved. 004. And I would recommend that we approve the variance as originally proposed.
Support.
And if there's any change that needs to be made, let us know. But you don't have to shrink. If you want to have the 2 doors, that's fine. But we, with the understanding that it's not impacting any of the neighbors, and I think that the owner ought to be able to do the addition without any problem.
Okay, Lori, do you have that? You want to just revisit that? Just tell us what the motion is from what?
It's as submitted.
Yeah. Yeah.
As submitted?
Yeah. Yeah. He had some side comment there, but the motion was just
because basically what we're saying is as the applicant requested, that's what we're approving.
Right.
That's basically right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion. Do we have a support?
I did support it.
You support? Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the variance is approved. The variances are approved. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all, and everyone have a good evening.
You too.
Just a question. Do you call your road Dallas or Dallas?
You know, it was always that it's Dallas Drive is for sure is the circle, but years ago, however, why ever don't know, the lead-in coming into the circle, if you, right where it meets the circle, says Dallas Court, is that part. So.
Some of the homes have 4 number addresses. And
Oh,
some have
yeah.
5.
you should see pizza guys coming.
Yeah.
They're like circling the wagons. I feel sorry for them.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I made at least 3 appointments.
Yeah, because we have north, south, east, and west addresses in there, 5-digit and 4-digit.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
The mailman gets to you, right? The mailman gets to you.
Oh, they know it. No problem.
All right. Do we have any comments from the board? Anything that
Just-
any news?
Just double checking, Lori. No, nothing so far for July. And when's the cutoff? Okay, so there is none for sure. Okay.
Okay. So with that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.